And good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Maricopa County Preparedness Team for January 15th, 2022. Congratulations. If that's where you were looking to be tonight, you made it. Congratulations. And we're looking forward to others that are going to join us as we move along, and we will just continue to move along. My name is Keith Morrison. My partner, James Dutcher, and I are going to be your hosts this evening to welcome you to year 2022 and your preparedness and awareness of things that we need to be doing in order to move forward this year with caution and with a solid mindset. I do want to remind everybody who are watching this, who are here live, that this session may be recorded to share on social media outlets in full or in part based upon our conversations. If you do not want to be known as being on this call, please go ahead and kill your camera. It's okay. We get it. We understand. We, on the other hand, look forward to spreading this word and having people see that we are real people doing real things, having real conversation about what's happening in the United States today and what we can do on our community levels to be able to prepare for that. If you are watching us on replay, thank you. We appreciate your getting on the replay, because you know what? This is going to be available for you to build your community stronger by being able to share it with neighbors, so you don't have to wait for our next meeting in order to share the information. With that, I'd like to open this meeting with James Dutcher providing us with our invocation. James?
Lord, thank you for everyone who is attending and for everyone who will be watching this replay. We hope that the information that we share is something that will give peace to people's hearts and minds and make them more open to accepting the intent of how America was founded. We hope that more people will join us in the future, and that our words and our actions will impact our community around us and better the community as a whole. Amen.
Amen. Join me now in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America and to
the
the
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes, I am proud to be an American. I'm a proud person to say, you know what? Come hell nor high water, this country is going to stay free. And I'm going to be a part of that. And I know that all of you here are going to be a part of it. And we don't need to be a part of Oath Keepers. We don't need to be a part of anything other than caring citizens of this country who are willing to stand up individually and lock arms with one another in order to make this happen. A few years back, or a little while back, James Dutcher, what was that? Were you showing me that, JR? A few months back, Mr. Dutcher went to Yavapai County. He heard about something that was going on up there, and those folks were rattling the trees and banging on doors and pans and things were happening. He went to go check it out, and when he came back, he says, you know what? Maricopa County needs this as well. So what I'd like to do is ask James to go ahead and read the mission statement, if you will, of what he came up with, and to let people know what we are about. So if they ask, you know what, they can know exactly where we're coming from without a shadow of a doubt. James?
All right. Okay, this team is based on the Oath Keepers and the Yavapai County Preparedness Team organizations. As the MCPT is a brand new group, I believe it is important to state our mission. Using the Reach, Teach, Train, and Inspire, the RTTI model, we can have the widest impact within our community and beyond. We will reach out to those currently serving in the military and law enforcement, to veterans, and to all interested citizens. We will teach that no one has to obey an unlawful order or a law that violates the Constitution of the United States. We will train community members to be prepared for an emergency event. Such events include economic collapse of the United States, a grid failure due to electromagnetic pulses, cyber attacks, solar flares, etc. civil unrest / civil war, food shortages, and short-term emergencies. We will inspire Americans to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States and to protect citizens against tyranny and oppression. What MCPT is not, we are not a political organization. Anyone who wishes to attend or speak is welcome. That said, there will be an invocation as well as the Pledge of Allegiance at the beginning of each meeting. We are not a militia. We are a group of American citizens who believe in upholding the Constitution of the United States and the Bill of Rights. What MCPT is, we are here to help our friends, family, and community to prepare for emergencies and to help the professional first responders in the event of an emergency or disaster. Your desire to learn, your skills, and your willingness to help your community are the cornerstones of American ideals. Together, we can make a difference and we can help give others a peace of mind in these troubled times.
Thank you, James.
Yep.
Just to remind you, for those of you who are joining us perhaps for the first time or the second time, we do this, we attempt to do this twice a month, where we come together as a general Zoom meeting. You know what? Life happens, folks. What can I tell you? And sometimes we only have one meeting for the month, but we'll always have one meeting, but sometimes having two sometimes is a stretch. But and these are the wrong dates, because I think those are the wrong dates for this particular thing. So I'm just going to get rid of this and say on the first and on the third Saturdays of the month is where you will find us at 6 p.m. at this same link. You can go to our MeWe page, join us on MeWe, which the link is right there. Or you can, if you're watching from your cell phone or you have your cell phone handy, go ahead and shoot that QR code so that we can get you on board there. If you want to have chats and conversations, we have a chat.
Red eye, red eye. Ready.
What? There we go. We're going to be able to have chats on there, as well as you're going to find community updates sometimes a lot more quicker than you're going to find them come out in newsletters. We're working on getting better on that. It's just that the best laid plans sometimes don't always come to fruition. So what do we talk about? We talk about preparedness. James, you want to talk about this wheel?
Yeah, basically what we and Yavapai, actually, we've shamelessly borrowed this from Yavapai.
We steal it. It's
okay. Yeah, we steal it. Yeah.
research and development.
That's
rob and
right.
duplicate.
You know,
but they like it.
What was done was it was looked at all the different areas of preparedness, because preparedness isn't something just like the doomsday preppers. Everybody has specialties. Everybody has areas of interest. So what we do is we break it down into different areas here. We talk about water. There's people that specialize in water systems and wells and things like that. We talk about shelters, food, fire, medical, comms, intel, security. Every one of these areas is integral to being prepared. And in each one of these areas, there's people that really feel at home performing some of these tasks, and they have a great amount of knowledge and skills that they can pass on to others. And each one of these, as part of the circle cannot be made whole if one of these parts are missing. So even though a lot of people are like, oh, well, you just need, food, water, and shelter to survive. That's part of the circle, but you need the rest, all these different areas that some of us really specialize in order to make this a community that can actually be prepared for disasters or events within the community. So,
because it's the community that brings us together, folks. It really is. It's about reaching down to help people up, to help bring them up to the same level that you're at. We're not looking down at anybody. We're reaching down to help people come up to a level of comfort and understanding and help them learn the things that they don't know, because together we're going to grow. And by staying in touch with one another, we can lock arms, join our communities, and come together. See, it's about the whole community coming together within not just Maricopa County, but if you can think of the county, any counties all across the United States, and the citizenry that is made up there, we're all under the same threats. We're all under the same challenges that we'll face in the event of a man-made or a natural disaster. No one should have to suffer. James is going to fill us in, I'm sure, in his report in a little bit about some of the nonsense that we saw because of storms and what people were caught up in. And I'm not going to blow his thunder out, but it's ridiculous. People should never be in that position. So when we look at the entire county, I mean, this is really kind of simple stuff, but understand the county is made up of cities. And how many thousands and hundreds of thousands of people are in a city? Phoenix is the 5th largest city in the United States. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of mouths to feed. That's a lot of water to be drunk. That's a lot of sanitation to be concerned with. So you see, we can't keep this a secret anymore. This has to be a conversation that we're having with people, not just within our own communities and our own cities, but we have to step outside into the other cities, into the neighboring cities, and have that conversation. Because as we involve a city, the city is comprised of neighborhoods, just like the one that you live in. Within 4 blocks of where you're standing, when you stand out in the front yard, okay, or when you stand at your apartment complex out there, just look around you. Maybe you live in a community that's got 300 or 400 apartments in it. Well, that's a community in itself that needs to come together and prepare for potential disasters. And that's where we form our neighborhood preparedness groups, our NPGs. Okay, it's not a launching grenade. This is neighborhood protection groups. And these are where people come together, and together we support one another to find out what skills, talents, what levels of security that we can provide and bring to the table. We can do this a couple of different ways, talking to our neighbors. You know, we live in Arizona. When you get out of the car at 120 degrees, you want to get in the house in that air conditioning as soon as possible. But when the weather's good, you can have conversations one-on-one, face-to-face, and you're talking to neighbors, tell them how good their barbecue smells that's coming over your fence. Have a little conversation about what you're doing with preparedness for yourself and ask them what they're doing. Don't be afraid to ask the question. You might find that they're wondering the same things that you're wondering. You might find that they have skills that you need in the event of an accident. Do you know what your neighbors do? Do you know what they do for a living? If you don't, there's a challenge for you in 2022. Get to know who they are, what they do, and what they can bring, and encourage them to come to one of these, because they don't have to leave their home if that's a concern for them. We can do this right here in the comfort of their own couch. Now, what's interesting here is that we grew from Yavapai 8 years ago, when they started with 2 or 3 people in a church room or in a house, wherever they were at when they started that. I'm not really sure how they started. They'll tell us about that because they're online. And when they started that, it started to grow. And I have been to meetings in Yavapai County at the church that they meet at, where we've got 450 people sitting in that auditorium to hear the messages that Jim and Janet Arroyo bring to the table. And from that, what they decided was that it was time to take this show to the road. And they didn't really decide it. It was just based upon popular demand. People stepped up and they said, hey, we need to hear something more about this on a more global scale, because I live in Michigan. I live in Indiana. I live in Florida. I want to be a part of this movement of that. And Jim and Janet, are you available to speak to that, or are you guys still driving?
I guess they're still driving then.
Yeah, they're muted out.
Actually, we are here. We're getting settled at home. We should be with you in just a minute.
Okay. James, you want to touch base on USCPT?
Yeah. USCPT is really a like Keith was saying, it's a movement that's starting. People are beginning to realize that the police are minutes away when things happen, and when minutes count. With the neighborhood protection group, you could actually have people that are in the neighborhood that are closer than the police. And part of the neighborhood protection group is a network of people that actually watch the neighborhood. They watch for those unsavory characters, for those unknown cars, slowly driving down the street looking for packages that Amazon was so nice to leave on the front porch for them. And there's so much more to this than what meets the eye, and it is a very strong movement that's starting up, because people are realizing that they can't depend on larger governments, anything from the city to the county to the state to even federal levels, to take care of neighborhood problems. And even the FEMA says on their website, do not depend on us to come and rescue you. It may be weeks before we are even able to get to you. So that's where the neighborhood starts coming in. The stronger the neighborhood, then the more that everybody can take care of themselves, everybody that knows each other. And, instead of some faceless stranger that comes into the neighborhood. But Janet, you want to talk a little bit more about the USCPT? I don't know if you heard much of what I was saying, but
I did. I heard every bit.
Great.
USCPT is something Jim and I have been talking about for a long time. We were always kind of frustrated with the Oath Keepers that they did not really have relationships with their groups. They didn't pass down any information or lesson plans or coordinated events where people could meet each other. So we've been thinking about it for a long, long time, but I guess it probably can be attributed to a visit we had by 60 Minutes. And you can see that clip of the show on our website. But 60 Minutes came to our meeting. They talked with us several times before when it was absolutely clear that we are this and not that, and it came out anyway. So they filmed about 10 hours over 2 days of footage, and they only aired a few minutes. There were quite a few of our members who were very concerned about that, thinking that being the right-wing press, they were going to give us terrible, terrible media coverage and ruin us. And what happened instead was the opposite. The first part of their presentation was what happened in Washington on January 6th, and a lot of people misbehaving. And then when they showed our group, we have a nice bunch of citizens and an instructor in the front teaching them things to keep them prepared and healthy and safe. And people around the country saw that contrast and started contacting us. Where can we find a group in Michigan? Where can we find a group in Florida? And that's when we actually started the USCPT, simply by publishing a map with the states and the counties. And when someone says, I'm here in Michigan, and if anyone else is in Michigan, they can contact me, we put them on the map. So that's exactly the way it's supposed to work, that if anyone does contact us, we can refer them to the map and they can connect with people in their own state, maybe even in their own county. And since then, we've been having nationwide Zoom meetings, talking with some of these people and finding out what they're doing and whether we can help them get organized. Thank you for that. That's a beautiful map. And giving them information and letting them take the benefit of our experience on what we did right, what we did wrong, and maybe help their groups grow. Also, Keith has offered his expertise with the Zoom. So we've been hopefully improving our presentation a little bit better, but we've also offered that per his instructions to the other teams. So if they want to have Zoom meetings in their state or their county, getting everyone together online, they can do that with the benefit of his experience. But since that time, we've had several meetings, and we've actually been contacted and now have relationships with people in the UK and in Panama. We've also, there's also a gentleman in Canada is very interested in what we do, who claims he kind of is in a preparedness desert. People there, he says there's nobody around him who has a clue why anyone would do this when their governments are going to take such good care of you. But we've had a wonderful time with it, and we hope to see it grow. So we always encourage, if you have family or friends around the country that would like to link up with other people or would like to be the contact for that state or that county, simply get in touch with us, and we'd be more than happy to get them on our map and include them in our Zoom calls.
And it's another example, Janet, thank you very much for that. I mean, just one more example how a community of strangers comes together and creates a family that's looking to work together, become part of the same idea. You know, it's not about being selfish. It's not about being right necessarily. It's about just everybody believing that we need to do something other than what our expectations are. Because if you're expecting, like Janet said, if you're expecting the government to come in and take care of you, there are no saviors, folks. If it's not clear to you right now, just go out to California, look out in the ocean, and look at how our supply chain is affected there because of the way it is.
It's small, but okay.
Why is it that way? You know what? It is what it is. So let me get back over here and shorten this out. Janet, I'm going to go ahead and mute you just a little bit if it's okay.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. All right. So with that being said, I'm going to mess my screen up here. One of these days, I'll actually bring that screen up correctly. What a great Zoom expert am I? All right. Yeah, but seriously, if you guys are starting something in your group, maybe that's how you need to meet with the teams in your area, even though you're just blocks away from one another. Maybe the Zoom is the right thing for you. So let me help you organize your group that's within there. Maybe, just maybe, you want to start your own group, and you're here in Arizona and Maricopa County, and you've got some friends down in Tucson. Maybe you got some friends down in Sierra Vista, Flagstaff. Maybe you got somebody up in Nevada. Hey, we can do this and help them build their stuff because they're your friends. And if they're your friends, gosh, you know what? They need to be protected too. So we're your friends in preparedness and awareness, folks. We're here to help you get laser focused on what you need to do and build awareness within your community. If you need to get a hold of either James or myself, this is how you do it. Take a screenshot of that, or take a shot with your phone. Send us an email, and we promise we will get back to you. Maybe not as quickly as you get other emails answered, but we do get back to people, okay? And we're always looking for ways to expand. Here's the cool thing about it. Jim and Janet Arroyo are servant leaders, and they will travel anywhere, just about, where there's the call for help. They will come, they will help you organize, they will help you train, they will help you start your program, they'll coach you. Janet wrote a book on how to do all this and how to get it set up. She will happily send you that at no additional, there's no cost to this. You understand? We're all a volunteer army. Okay. If we could charge for Janet and Jim and what they bring to the table, folks, I can't afford it, because what they bring is so powerful and dynamic. You can't really replace it. So I'm going to step back and shut up, because this is the part of the program where Mr. Ducher gives us a look at current affairs and what's going on. And it's always interesting. When he's done with that, we had our live meeting this evening from 2:30 to 4:30 here in Scottsdale, our in-person face-to-face meeting. We did that, had about 4 people plus myself there. So that was great. And we had some great conversation about some stuff that I know that Jim and James will shed light on as far as what was brought up, because there were some really interesting things. But in the meantime, James Ducher, take it away.
All right. I usually start my intel briefings by giving people a little bit of history. I find that if people don't understand history and where we came from, then they're not likely to understand how some of these events actually impact us, either on a global, a national, or a local scale. And if we don't realize things happened in the past in our country, we're missing out on a great resource, because a lot of our problems have been dealt with before in history, and we can actually learn from history of how they dealt with these problems and maybe make it a little easier for ourselves. Today, on the 15th of January, in 1913, the first telephone line between Berlin and New York was inaugurated. You know, 1913, you're thinking people are running around in Model T Fords and things, and they're talking on the phone between New York and Berlin in Germany. 1920, the dry law goes into effect. So they did prohibition in the United States, became illegal to sell liquor or beer. And that was a misguided attempt to push morals on people. And unfortunately, it looks like people are trying to force that on us again, but different types of morals. In 1944, the US Fifth Army successfully broke the German winter line in Italy. In 1973, President Richard Nixon announced the suspension of offensive action by US troops in Vietnam. And then in 1991, the UN, the deadline expired that the UN gave Iraq to withdraw its forces from Kuwait. That set the stage for Operation Desert Storm. So there's some real events that took place today in history. And I encourage everybody to actually look at history, because there's a lot of things that went on in the past that people don't realize. Everybody starts thinking, oh, you know, there's only today, or, you know, this year or something, and they don't realize how much history there is for the United States. And not all of it is, you know, unjust history or anything like that. So I encourage everybody to do a little reading in their history books. Okay, today in the world, well, since our last meeting, Russia has left the talks that they were having with the United States about the situation that was going on over there with the border of Poland. Russia says there is no use of talking anymore. There was nothing productive that was going on. Russia also said that they will not rule out military deployments to Cuba or Venezuela if we start putting more troops on the border over there near Poland. They're willing to expand this thing more globally instead of just keeping it in Europe. So there's going to be a lot of tension coming from this, and Europe is suffering a lot this winter because most of their natural gas, or a good portion of it, was coming from Russia. And Russia has since either shut off the pipelines or that they've greatly reduced how much was going in there. Okay, here in the US, the Supreme Court of the United States, they struck down the OSHA vaccine mandate. However, they did allow all the other mandates for the healthcare workers to stay in place. Oath Keeper founder Stuart Rhodes has been indicted on charges in connection with the January 6th fiasco. I read the indictment, and it reads like some kind of fantasy out of far left, you know, fantasy land there. There's almost no chance of making anything stick on this. This was just absolutely far-fetched. MSM is actually finally starting to report on the empty shells that are just absolutely undeniable around the country. That in itself is going to end up having repercussions, because as people start seeing on their news networks empty shelves, that they're going to be running down to the store to buy more stuff because, you know, they don't want to run out of Cheetos or, you know, Mountain Dew, you know, if there's any kind of a supply chain issue here. The West Coast is under a tsunami warning. There was a volcano that erupted in the Pacific. Maryland has declared a state of emergency, and they've actually called in the National Guard due to a massive post-vaccine COVID-19 outbreak. Part of the problem is of their own making. They have told all their healthcare workers, get vaccinated or get out. And since they had a lot of their people that didn't want to get the vaccine, either they've already had it or they just don't want the vaccine, they are now short on staffing, so they're having to call in the National Guard just to keep their hospitals running on a daily basis. One of the things that I put underneath the US, and it's also under my state headlines, is that California is going to be implementing an aggressive new tax hike. And that is going to force a lot of people and a lot of businesses out of California. And of course, Arizona is the next closest place, you know, with Phoenix being such a large city, there's going to be a lot of transplants. So there's going to be a lot more non-conservative kind of thinking people that's going to be coming into the state. And they're going to continue to vote the same way that they voted where they came from. So, you know, the best thing that you can do to that is actually reach out to some of these people and see if you can actually talk to them. And who knows, you may actually be able to change their mind on some of the issues. And, you know, but we're going to have to watch this because it's also running a lot of businesses out of California. It's going to be almost like a 25% or 23% tax increase on businesses. Now, supermarkets are only making about a 20% profit. And, you know, if they absolutely run a new tax on them, they're going to have to raise their prices or they're going to have to collapse. So there's going to be food shortages going on in California because people just can't afford food. Okay, here in the state, Yuma is still under a state of emergency because of the flood of illegal immigrants that are coming across the border. We are still in a declared drought situation. And kind of go along with that drought situation, our soon-to-be ex-Governor Ducey, in his last State of the State address, he said that he wants to build a desaltation plant in Mexico to help out with the Arizona water crisis. The desaltation plant would take salt water out of the Gulf of Cortez, basically remove all the salt and send it back up to Arizona. The numbers on that say that's nothing more than a pipe dream. They want to put $2 billion towards that. And that is only about 20% of the cost of a plant. So they would have to come up with the rest of the money as the plant is being built. And it's not even going to touch the amount of water that we're restricted from right now from the Colorado River. So this will not be any kind of a thing that would make any impact other than be a big drain on the Arizona budget. But it's one of those, you know, pipe dreams of, you know, let's have a desaltation plant. But, oh, yeah, it's going to be in a foreign country that could be nationalized at any time and not directly under our control. And not only that, but the water would be 10 times more expensive coming from there than what we're getting from the aquifers and everything else. They said there's a lot better things we can do to help combat this drought than throwing money at it. Okay, here in the county of Maricopa, we had a gentleman that was sitting in his car here in Phoenix. He got shot and killed. Also, our mainstream media here in Maricopa County is starting to report on empty shelves. I've been going around the stores taking a look, and the empty shelves are definitely getting worse. And being that we're such a large city, we're really, really at the mercy of the supply chain. And the way the supply chain goes, it's not getting any better. So I would highly suggest people get out there, get what you need now, so that, you know, further issues with the supply chain, road closures, anything like that, doesn't affect you and your family. And the last subject, which is near and dear to my heart, which is COVID-19. Arizona's canceled over 1,000 high school sports games because of the fear of the Omicron surge. You're going to hear that a lot on the news. They keep talking about the Omicron surge and tidal wave, and they use all these expressive things for basically a small uptick in our the numbers here. I'll put up on the screen here in a little bit a picture of how our hospital beds are actually being utilized in the state of Arizona. The European Union and the World Health Organization have both warned that COVID booster shots are not needed, and matter of fact, they are dangerous to people. They said that the booster shots and what is in them is not good for long-term use, and especially not multiple booster shots.
Did you want to share your screen? I gave you a share.
Almost in a minute here.
All right, sorry.
No problem. They have tried to make, we've all seen the warning labels on cigarettes. They've suddenly made a giant change on the warning labels on the cigarettes so that they can explain away some of the issues with post-vaccine deaths. They're now claiming small amounts of smoke can trigger sudden blood clots, heart attacks, and strokes. So it doesn't even say that you have to be a regular smoker. You just have to get a small amount of smoke for this to happen.
Does that affect my barbecue too?
I'm sure even the dust in the air would do that.
Jeez.
So
Global warming will clean it up. It's okay.
Oh yeah. When all the California or Florida's underwater, right? Okay, even the United Kingdom's government data has proved the spread of COVID-19 is occurring mostly in vaccinated citizens. So the people that are getting sick are not the unvaccinated. The majority of the sick people are vaccinated at least once, if not 3 times. And I would like to share the screen if I can. Let's see if I can move this over here.
You should be able to, James.
Yeah. And let me share. Here we go.
We've had medical professionals here in our hospital confirming that all the cases they see are vaccinated people.
Right. Now, this is what.
No, Janet. No. No. They're unvaxxed. Come on.
Yeah.
Would they lie to me? I don't understand.
Well, they're just,
We actually know an ambulance driver who says that they're extremely busy. They've had to bring up another ambulance from Mesa, I believe, to take care of the load. And when they go to people's homes and they're short of breath or whatever their emergency is, they start telling them, I got my vaccination and now I can't breathe. So when he takes them into the hospital, he has it noted on their little report that they are vaccinated. And he was asked, how do you know that? He said, because they're screaming it at me. They're telling me I got my vaccination and now I'm really sick. So
I bet they've been told to shut up.
everyone he's been picking up has been vaccinated.
Yeah, the stroke centers and everything here in Phoenix are just full of people that have been vaccinated. And it's way, way above anything normal. The screen I'm sharing with you is actually from Arizona Department of Health Services. And this is over the last 7 months. The first chart up there towards the top, it talks about emergency department beds. If there was a tidal wave or a surge or something like that, the beds would not be, they would be, clear red. There's a lot of empty beds in the emergency department. The next one down is the number of inpatient beds. The light gray is available. The darker gray is in use by non-COVID patients, and the red is in use by COVID patients. Unfortunately, they don't, I cannot find a definition of what COVID patients are. Is it somebody that went in there for something else and they tested positive for COVID? Or did they come in there, with, COVID symptoms or whatever those are? So as you can see, it's not a tidal wave that's going on. Even right now at its supposed highest point, it's only a 35% usage by COVID patients. And even the ICU beds, you can actually see that the ICU beds have flatlined as far as the COVID patients go. It's actually already reached one peak and we're a lot farther down than that peak. So even with the ICU beds, it's only a 38% utilization by what they call COVID patients. So the news, the local news, and the doctors are spreading fear to people that don't need to be scared about these things. Yes, we need to be careful. We need to do all the normal stuff, hygiene stuff that you would do anyway. But, there's no reason to be scaring people. And that's part of what we're trying to get across to people, is that you don't have to be ruled by this fear that, the news media and some of the other people are putting out, because it's just not the reality of the situation. So that's pretty much it for what I have to share as far as our intel briefing.
I'm unmuted. Good. So I've got a theory, and it's just simply a theory, unfounded theory. God forbid we ever come up with any unfounded theories in this environment. Okay. But first, before I mention my theory, I want you all to make sure that you order your Dr. Fauci t-shirt where right. So if you remember Lord of the Rings, my precious.
Yep.
Him and his vial of vax. Anyway, what if, call me a conspiracy theorist, please. What if the vaccine, not the vaccine, but the tests that have been distributed. Now, not suggesting that that would ever happen with this administration, but what if those test kits were actually pre-weighted before they were distributed? What if you just put water, bottled water, sterilized water on the swab and it still came out as a positive test?
It has.
Would that have any indicator of rises and increases during a flu season that we always have from November through February? We experienced the flu season. I turned 65 2 weeks ago, and guess what? Ever since I was a kid, I always got sick during Christmas. Did I have COVID? Did I, was it an early COVID carrier back in the day? Or did I just have the flu? It was great though, because as a kid, I ran high temperatures and I was given phenobarbital. So I was like 7 and just floating. It was an interesting, it's probably why I don't like drugs or alcohol today. I hate that feeling of not being in control.
One of the advantages of having such a large group is we get a lot of our members scouring the internet and sending us information and posting it on the MeWe pages. Yes, there have been people who sent in test swabs that were put into distilled water and they came back positive.
There you go.
There are people who got notices through their mail saying, by the way, Mr. Morrison, your test came back positive for COVID. And Mr. Morrison never got tested. There are world leaders, particularly some African nations, where they tested papayas and guavas and bananas, and they came back positive for COVID. By the way, those guys suddenly died right after that. But yes, and then they admit now that there is no test for it. All of their testing has been wrong. So when they tell us that there are 4,000 new cases today, how do they know? If the test is no good, how do you know?
But this has been brought to you by your FDA, approving all booster shots.
The best thing to know is that this thing is so easily treated with the quercetin and the zinc and the vitamins. And we've been told that by dozens of people who, so most of we don't know anyone in our group that's had it, but they've had relatives out of state and they've said, you know what, you need to go get these things at the drugstore. And in 2 days, they're back on their feet and they're amazed because they all thought this was going to kill them. So the whole thing is just a farce. We need to get through it. Hopefully, I mean, I'm glad to see that there are people with more political power than me who are working on it, and hopefully it'll go away very soon.
So this brings up some questions that we had during our live meeting over here in Scottsdale today. One thing was something about a NASA bill. They had the 2001 event, October 2019, but they brought something up about a NASA bill that has been sent through up to the Senate to be signed off on. Do you guys know about that?
I don't know all the details, but we got a report from a female senator who was leaving the Senate today. She was walking across the parking lot to her office and she wanted to make sure everybody knew about this and she was incensed. Apparently, they realized that they could not get that election bill through, and there was another one. They could not get them through. So what they did is they took a bill that had already been approved for NASA, and they gutted out everything in it and put these two bills in the NASA bill. And when they presented it as a NASA bill, it got passed. So now the bills that attack the United States citizens and control federally all of our elections have been passed under the pretext of being a bill for the benefit of NASA.
And it was NASA renegotiating their land leases for the
I'm not sure what it was there, but that's what she was upset about.
something convoluted.
Right. And if it was really something that was good for the American people, why did you have to hide it? How is it you knew you were not going to get the votes for it that prompted you to do this highly immoral thing, to slip in something that the American people don't need and even your own peers don't want?
Well, very simply because, comrade, if we keep things out of the way, perhaps they will never experience what they should not be experiencing in that time. So I would like you all to write down this number for me, please. This is a US patent number, US patent number 111-07588, B as in boy, the number 2. US 111-075-888, B as in boy, 2. I have not yet, I just got this information today, and this is a US patent on the vaccine that contains nanoparticles, from what I understand. And these nanoparticles that are being injected through the vaccines, I guess in the boosters, I'm not sure where it's all going injected because I just heard about this. I haven't had a chance to look at it. is 5G technology, meaning that your 5G cell towers, 5G phones are designed to activate the nanotechnology that's being injected into you.
5G satellites.
Do you know about this patent?
No, I'm bringing it up right now, but
Cool.
Verizon has actually said that they're not going to go with the 5G right now. They're not going to activate their 5G network. But the problem is the Amazon is launching all of the 5G satellites into space because they want to blanket pretty much most of the planet with 5G, so everybody has a ability to get on the internet from the 5G signals that are being beamed back to Earth from the satellites. And as far as I know, the satellites haven't gone live yet, but you know, we can't just say, well, cell towers and cell phones. It's actually going to be coming at us from space, because that's what those satellites are meant for, is to provide 5G communication to be beamed down in spots that doesn't have cell towers, or they don't have 5G cell towers.
And you know, it just all goes back to, folks, this isn't doom and gloom. Okay. You may not like what you're hearing, you may not feel comfortable about what you're hearing, but you have to be aware of what you hear. It is our responsibility as humans on the planet Earth to be aware of events that could affect you on a negative basis, so that you can take the necessary precautions. Whether you choose to make the necessary precautions or not, that's up to you.
Well, I
But
think you're absolutely right. There's a lot we cannot control out there. What we can control is, do we want to use these devices? But more importantly, whatever they're planning is not going to be good. And we need to be as ready as possible to protect ourselves and our families. And that means get out there and get some food, get these medications that you need, get your prescriptions filled so you have them on hand. We're very big on stocking up on medical supplies. If you have any kind of an injury, you, your neighbors, your family, you need to have medical supplies available to take care of that. And you should find out in your neighborhood whether you have any medical professionals, because you may not want to go into a hospital if you get a major wound. Hospitals these days are not a place that I trust, which is why we're very, very happy that we've been able to link up now with a couple of doctors that are not vaxxed and don't want to be, and they will treat our members who have not been jabbed yet. So that's an option too. But if you can't get into a town or a city where you have a friendly doctor, then you have to have these things in your neighborhood.
Exactly.
and then I have a bridge to sell everyone if they're interested. By the way, I just heard it was available.
Yeah, I mean, I have some things in my medical kit that I do not have training to use, and I wouldn't use it unless it's a real life and death situation with a member of my family. My thought process on that is there's going to be somebody, you know, that is trained on how to use some of this stuff. And, you know, I'll be able to say, hey, you know, I have, you know, X, Y, and Z that you can use, you know, on someone that's hurt in my family. So even don't just look at, you know, what you're trained for. You can actually go above and beyond that, so that in event of something that really happens, like you say, you're cut off, you know, somebody in your neighborhood might actually be a doctor or an RN that knows how to do that certain procedure, but they just don't have the equipment to do it.
Well, that's true. It used to be that a lot of the doctors carried those supplies with them in their little black bag. But now I think they're more prone to say, oh, I have all that in my office. So
Right.
You're right. If you have certain supplies, whether you know how to use them or not, I think it's going to be easier to find a doctor who needs your supplies than it would be to find a doctor with supplies.
Exactly.
So, and if we can say, yeah, we've got some of that, or or what is this thing over here? And he'll go, that's exactly what I need. So, but yeah, we're real big on stocking up on everything you can. And we know people that actually bought Army surplus surgical kits.
Mhm.
They're not planning to take out a tonsil or a, what's the thing down below? Your
Appendix. Yeah.
But if someone knows
Prostate.
how, he's got the tools.
Yeah. Exactly. So, you know,
Crazy.
the more we can think ahead and plan, the better. Because China is shutting down a lot of their ports.
Yes.
And once again, they've shut down their major city. I think it's Shaixing, that produces the majority of their microchips. And that's because China, for some reason, is trying to enforce a zero COVID policy, which just isn't working.
They're also buying up an awful lot of the world's food supplies.
Mhm.
So that's going to cause a real shortage here. And we've actually known people that have said, well, I can't go get that right now because it's more expensive than it was last week. And we keep saying it's not going to get cheaper.
No,
Yeah.
it's not.
You either get it at the higher price if you're able, or you're just not going to have it.
Mhm.
And also one of the things that we think is very, very important, particularly if you get the stored food or the MREs, those are not something that you really should plan on living on for a long time, because even though they will fill your belly and they have some nutrition, after a while, they are going to stop up your system and cause some problems. So we recommend that you perhaps get some sprouting seeds so you can grow sprouts in your kitchen even, and
Yep.
supplement these freeze-dried or packaged foods with some fresh greens that are bioavailable and can keep you a little healthier. Very
Okay.
important.
Most
And that
definitely.
brings up our conversation that we had last time. And that was about the Bishop's store
Mhm.
in Phoenix, where you're able to get supplies, freeze-dried supplies and that type of thing at great, great rates, but it's available. And yeah, so there are places to find this stuff. And as much as I know y'all hate shopping at Walmart, did you know, and I'm pulling it up right now, did you know that Walmart actually has a section in there, and I'm pulling up their website for you real quick. Share that with you. Where if you go into their website, okay, and type in survival food, they actually bring up a couple of different options for you. Now, these are American companies. Not all of them, but some of them are all American companies. Like carrying this item in your car.
Mhm.
This is something even in, I'm sorry, Janet, I'm sorry.
I should have muted, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you, so you could get, you talk about your car where you might be 72 hours from being able to get home for some reason. And you know what, having these food rations in your vehicle where you can chew on these cookies that are low in sodium, they're not going to draw a lot of thirst because these are made for lifeboats
Mhm.
that you can actually chew and eat. There are these big containers of product, and they're out of some of it, but the pricing is what the pricing is. How about peanut butter powder for $12? You can do a lot of stuff with peanut butter powder. If
Yep.
you have the ability to mix it with water, biscuits and gravy, that's a little bit high there, but there's a lot of different Patriots foods are in there. Here's some more emergency food bars that you can eat to give you the nutrition and the calories that you need to survive. How about, did you ever think about having some buttered powder? Now, you may not be able to use a number 10 can of buttered powder for $17.07, but I'll take a third. Rick Yakamachi, you can have a third. JR, you want a third? We split that can up. We put it in a ball jar. And no, we're not going to get the 27,000 year food storage life out of it, but we're going to have it available. See, if you're not eating some of the foods that you're storing, you're missing the boat. Doreen says there's Costco has Ready Wise food buckets also. Yes, they do.
Mhm.
I don't know what their pricing is on that, but yeah, I mean, there's food out there. Having food on your shelf, and that's what I was going to report on. Probably not going to do it tonight. I'll do it the next time. But having food on the shelf doesn't mean that you leave it on the shelf for its expiration date. What you do is you put it through your system, as Janet pointed out 3 meetings ago, is you buy this stuff. And as you're eating it, you're replacing it plus one,
Mhm.
repeating, and repeating that process. And now you're building up your stores, 1 can, 2 cans. Right now, Fry's has got Progresso soup on sale, 99 cents a can, limit of 8. 99 cents a can for Progresso soup is a good price. And Progresso soup, you can eat a can of split pea soup. And so long as the thing hasn't been sitting there and is bulging, you know what? That's going to be a good hearty meal to get you through a couple of days, even if you drink it cold, which is kind of sticky, but it's still, you could, right? But it's good stuff. So there are things you can do. I just got done doing 5 pounds of bananas, put it through my dehydrator. And I dehydrated 5 pounds of bananas. Came out to be 1 jar, right? Been big, like looked like a lot of bananas, but it wasn't. So what can you do? You can do a lot. Even on a fixed limited budget, you can do a lot. You can look at the sale papers, pick up the things. Pinto beans, Sandra Richards, who reports on that our MeWe site all the time with great things about growing your garden, growing that seed. And she reported about being able, she did a cost analysis. The girl's amazing. She did a cost analysis on canned pinto beans.
Mhm. That
And taking,
was great.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
Canned pinto beans, instead of taking hard beans, because we always are told what? Buy beans and rice, beans and rice. And her point was, sure, buy beans and rice, but buy beans that are already cooked. Because when you weigh it out and you weigh it out financially, to pour the beans out of the can, even removing the water weight, and by the time you take energy costs into heating those beans up and boiling them for 25 minutes or whatever it takes to make pinto beans from raw, hard beans, you're actually saving money by doing it through the canned things and then dehydrating those things, because to reconstitute dehydrated beans takes less energy. And in our community and where we live in Southern Arizona, or in Arizona period, I can take a gallon jar, put water in it, put my beans in it, put it in the sun for a couple hours, and I've just heated up dinner. Think outside the box. If you
Right.
make sun tea, you can make sun food, right? My next investment is going to be in one of those solar cooker deals.
Yeah.
Apple slices. See, I don't go to this here. This is great food, the adventure, but you know what? I'd rather go to Augustin Farm because they have got, and they were out of stuff for a while. They stopped producing for a little bit while they tried to figure all this out. But isn't this a cool idea? Are you prepared? Is this something that you can do? And you know what? It's Walmart. I get it. You know, some people got a hard on about Walmart, whatever. I need to get food in the house. And if this is convenient wise, time wise, I'm going to get this stuff in my house because I'm more concerned about feeding my family than being politically correct right now. Period.
Well, just so you know, Costco has a line of foods like this called Thrive. And they will deliver to your home and you can get 1 or 2 or a year supply. And it's
Okay.
a real high quality product,
Cool. Thank you.
because I won't step into a Walmart. So-
Yeah.
I hear you. I'm just trying to make a point.
Understood. But I look for alternatives and that was a good one. It worked out for us really well.
And if you have an oven, okay, you know, you can dehydrate some of those foods in your own oven if you can get your temperatures down low enough. So just do a little bit of research. This is one thing I will not try, and that's doing my own eggs. I think I'll go ahead and leave that to commercially processed because I'm not comfortable dehydrating my own eggs.
Yeah, those should be freeze dried.
I'm bringing all my eggs to your house.
Yeah.
Now, we do have people that have done it here on the freeze dryer. Works out
Mhm.
beautifully. They love it. We've had a couple people now buy one recently and they're busy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, mine's been running almost nonstop.
And then milk, don't forget about having some milk available, because that becomes a staple or mixer for other stuff that you want to eat.
Mhm.
True.
All right, I'm off my high horse now.
It's
Yeah.
a good horse
Oh.
to be on.
I would mention one thing about the prepackaged food is make sure and don't go by servings, go by calories. Because if you go by servings, there was actually a large lawsuit that happened because this company got sued because they were saying that their year's supply was based on servings, not calories. And it turned out that the amount of calories in that year's supply that they were trying to sell wasn't enough to keep people alive. And so they were trying to say, well, there's enough servings for a year, but there wasn't enough calories for a year. So make sure that you pay attention to the calories and not just the servings. And in a time of emergency, your calorie intake is going to go way up because you're going to be doing a lot more manual stuff. So be aware of that as well.
Good point. Think it through, replace it, keep a logbook. You might not have a computer, you might not know how to work spreadsheets and do all that business, but folks, seriously, you put things down on a list and put the expiration dates on those, like medicine. What is it, Jim? Like you can go a year to 2 years sometimes with some medicines, even though the expiration date is this, you can go a couple years beyond that. So you don't have to necessarily toss it just because it expired last month.
Well, that's true. It may lose some of its potency. So you
Mhm.
might need to take a little more of it, but they're still good.
Yeah, 1 or 2 years past expiration date, as long as it's been stored properly in a cool, dark, dry environment in a cabinet, yeah, you're fine. It's not going to be a problem. The enemy of most medications is heat. Yeah, you don't store it in the trunk of your car, especially in Phoenix.
No,
Yeah,
no.
it'll ruin it. But in your house, controlled temps, yeah, a couple years past expiration date, no problem.
Which is always a challenge, isn't it, for us? Because in Phoenix, what do you do when it says keep in a cool and dry place? Some of us don't have a cool and dry place to keep stuff.
That's very true.
But some of us also look past where a cool and dry place could be that we're not using. For example, under your couch. How much space is under your couch that's not being used, or under a chair that's in your living room? You can put how many cases of food underneath your couch, right? So it might get a little dusty under there, but what the hey? You can store the food in there. You could actually store it in the back of the couch. If you can cut the panel open big enough, you can actually store it in the body of the couch itself in the house in a cool and dry place, because that's a cavity that is just backed by springs and some material, the packing material, but there's a lot of space that's wasted in there.
Some
You could-
closets stay very cool also.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
You can hide guns in the back of your couch and ammunition, so that if you get burglarized, they're generally not going to tear your couch apart. They're looking in other places. So you can think,
Unless it's the DEA.
what's that?
Unless it's the DEA.
Well, you can't do anything with those guys.
They'll just come in and bulldoze your house.
They're out of
Yeah,
control.
pretty much. I mean, it looks like a wrecking crew's been in afterwards. Hey, could I back up a little bit with the
Sure.
conversation that you were having about the nanotechnology there?
Mhm.
Michael Crichton wrote a book 20 years ago called Prey. And it was about the development of nanotechnology and nanoparticles for the government to use as a weapon, but it went awry, and they were trying to get the marketing for it through using it as injecting it into your body as a camera to where they could see everything. So when you guys were saying that, I just started chuckling, because I'm like, yeah, that was written as a fictional book, but one of the things I liked about reading a lot of Crichton stuff was there was always bibliographies in the back where he got the scientific proof of what he was talking about, but he twisted it into a novel to where, you know, he wasn't saying that this is really happening, but when you look at the bibliography and you see the scientific stuff that he did to get the information for those novels, he was truly a genius. He really was. And he was a great storyteller too. It is just when you guys said that with the 5G stuff, I was just like, yeah, son of a bitch, ain't that the truth? You know, it just
Well,
made me think of that.
we can look back at several situations. There's a video running now where several ladies are in a nail salon and one of them suddenly has a heart attack. Her phone flashed at the second before she had a heart attack. And they're saying that that was a test of a system. But outside of that, we remember the concert that they had recently where so many people just collapsed suddenly. And they tried to say it was because people were pushing to the front, but other witnesses say no, they were just there enjoying the concert and suddenly they fell down dead, had heart attacks, carried out. And again, there were people saying that some of the frequencies in the music may have reacted with what's in these things. But let's face it, we don't need to get into a lot of time as to what's in them and what do they do. We know that they're full of toxins. We know that they don't do a single thing about curing or helping any illness. We know that everything they do, that we know that they cause clots. We know they cause heart problems. We know athletes are dropping dead on the field. We don't know how many other people are dropping dead because what they do is in private places, whether it be their homes, their offices, their studios. But the athletes, they can't hide because they're out there in the middle of a soccer field and they suddenly fall down and die or grab their heart with a heart problem. We've got the fellow who holds the world record for holding his breath underwater, who can no longer even swim because he has this. So basically all we need to know now is it's a really bad thing and we will not take it. We will not comply with this thing. Some people do for whatever reasons, but it's informed consent. If you know what's in it and you choose to take it, that's fine. But I know enough about what's in it that there's just no flaming way I would ever recommend to anybody else that they do. So without spending too much more time on the specifics of this thing, it's just bad. Don't do it.
None of it's good.
There's nothing good in it, nothing, not a little speck of sugar you can talk about. Every single doctor will tell you the same. So just don't do it.
Let me get my mask. Hold on.
2 or 3 of them would be better.
It would be.
Plastic
Wait,
bag's best.
I was gonna say, I'll just take this right here,
Yeah.
surgical glove, that'll work.
Yeah.
And unless it's not an OBA, it ain't gonna work.
Does anyone
Yeah.
else have anything that they would like to give input on during the course of this meeting? It's 7:21 right now. It's 21 minutes after the hour and we'll be wrapping up here pretty shortly. We're going to be making the times from 6 p.m. until 7:30 p.m. If we need to go beyond that, then we can. But we're trying to give you a little bit of your evening back, but yet still bring value as far as this programming goes. So is there anybody, JR, you got something?
Did you want me to do chapter 2 from our intelligence brief?
I would love that.
Awesome. So if you want to share my screen, I'll share my screen.
You
I
should
think I
be,
can.
oops, you should be able to share. There we go.
How's that? Everybody see that?
Yep.
All right. So this is chapter 2 from our book, SHFT Intelligence. This is Sam Culper. We went over chapter 1 last time, which was basic definitions of intelligence and sources of intelligence. Chapter 2 covers key terms and concepts. Key terms are intelligence gap. That's what we don't know that we need to know. Intelligence requirement, clear description of the intelligence gap. Enduring requirement, it's a requirement that commands constant monitoring and updating. So that would be something like, say, the weather, if that was important to your mission. Ad hoc requirement would be for a specific event. And then as an organization, there is something called analysis and control element. That's the group assigned to analyze collected data. Area of operations, that's the geographic area where activity is anticipated. So it could be, as small as your neighborhood, if that's the group you're running with, or the county or the state, whatever you got. And the concept, or the key term, OODA loop. That's OO as in, ooh, that's weird. Observe, orient, decide, and act. It's actually a pretty common term, and in practice, it's actually something we all do every day with almost everything that we do, from getting out of bed to eating a meal. Concepts, the OODA loop and the intelligence cycle. So we'll start with the OODA loop. Again, it's observe, orient, decide, and act. It's nothing new. It's how we all operate. And the one thing to note, interrupting any one of these can inhibit the act. And so that's if you're carrying out something in a kinetic sense. If you interrupt any of these, you can prevent the opposition from gaining the upper hand or achieving their objective. The intelligence cycle consists of 5 phases: planning, requirements, direction, collection, analysis, processing, production, and dissemination. You gotta excuse me, I got the goo. Been running a temperature for the past couple of days now. So haven't been doing a lot of talking. All right, phase 1, planning, requirements, and direction. So this is where you actually develop your requirements by asking questions in order to fulfill the intelligence gap. And the questions should meet 4 criteria: necessity, is it necessary and responsive to your need? Feasibility, can the information be collected in sufficient quantity and quality? Timeliness, is the information current or stale? And specificity, this is who, what, where, when, how, why. These are all the details of it. And that will give your collectors the direction on what they need to bring back. In phase 2, that's collection. It's simple, go out and get it. Phase 3 is analysis and processing. The intelligence elements come back. Analysts evaluate it, prioritize it, determine whether or not what's been brought back is valid, whether or not it meets goals. They can prioritize it, and then along the way, they might determine that they've identified a new intelligence gap by something that's been returned. So in all, this phase 3 analysis is analogous to the orient loop. So again, collection was observe and analysis is orient. So you can see this OODA loop concept and intelligence cycle can kind of go hand in hand. Phase 4, now the analysis is put to paper, finalized, put into some form for consumption or transfer. And phase 5 is dissemination, where the finished product is given to the leadership structure and they perform the final steps of the OODA loop, which is decide and act. Typically that ends the intelligence cycle. And the exception is if the development of this product has uncovered a new intelligence gap. So that's pretty much it. And as you can see, all this information is really geared toward having a semi-professional organization established. You've got enough manpower, you got enough women power too. You got all the necessary people to go out and do it. Now, of course, people can achieve multiple roles. They can be gatherers and analysts. But typically there's a little more branching out. So that's pretty much it for chapter 2.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. Now, what I would like to suggest is that we continue to bring this all together. At some point, would you be willing to take all the chapters that you're summarizing, and let's do an hour, let's say, or however long you think it's going to take in one setting, so that people who are new to this whole concept and system can hear this information, and then we can speak about some of the practical application that might be used at. Would you be willing to do that?
Sure, but what do you have in mind?
Well, basically, like you're taking this book, you're breaking down the chapters for us, and you're doing a great job at doing that. We're understanding this conversation. But what I see happening potentially is if you could take all these, as you're finishing each chapter, you're putting your summary together, then bringing those summaries together into one class, one training, picking it up from chapter 1 all the way through the final chapter of the book. So that way somebody who wants the abridged version instead of reading the book is getting your input, and they're being trained basically as to what this is all about. Did I clarify myself? So basically,
Well,
I want you to teach a class.
Okay.
I mean, bottom line, I want you to teach all this stuff, but I want you to continue to, if you're available to do that. I mean, we appreciate this. If you're willing to continue this process and give it to us each chapter at a time as you're doing, but then come together in one full class that we can have that available in our archives.
Yeah, I mean, I'm creating a PowerPoint deck for each one of these chapters. So is what you have in mind just running through multiple chapters at once?
Yep.
Okay.
Now,
I wasn't sure if you wanted me to, put a crew together and go out and spy on some people.
no, we don't spy on people. We leave that to Scottsdale Unified School District, the superintendents, to do stuff like that. Spying.
Maybe we should counter spy.
You know what? When you do that, even say anything bad about any municipality's administration, you're now a domestic terrorist. So yeah, we got to be careful with how that all operates.
Speaking of, I have another presentation on domestic violent extremists if you're interested.
Sure. Yeah.
You want it now?
How long is it?
Yeah, maybe 5-7 minutes.
Let's run with it.
Okay, let me see if I can I got to get back to my screen.
We're always open to be educated.
I need to get back to my screen here. I am screen sharing.
You are screen sharing.
Okay, I need to get back to my computer.
If I click at the top of the screen, where it says click to exit.
There we go.
Yeah.
Janet, I'm on the Costco website while he looks this up. I'm looking for Thrive, right? Thrive Foods at Costco.
Yes.
I see Kobe beef, 2 pieces for $285.
How much are you going to get?
Yeah. Here, let me order 600 pounds.
Yeah. The one thing another thing I would suggest about the some of the longer term foods in these packages is to actually try them. Some are really horrible, and they're banking on you never using them, so you'll never find out how bad they actually are.
And Jim Arroyo points out in his classes about you've got to test this stuff, because if you're feeding your people stuff that they hate and that tastes like crap, the morale of your troops, the morale of your family goes.
Burns 46 pounds in 2 weeks.
46 pounds in 2 weeks. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah. So can you see the screen? Can you
Negative.
see?
There's no picture on there. It just says that you're sharing it.
Hmm. Do you have to do something at your end, Keith?
No, sir. You should be all, let's go ahead and close your screen out. Hit the escape key on your computer, hit escape. And then let's go ahead and stop sharing for a moment. Okay. Now, if you could go back to the little green button on the bottom and click on that. And then another window is going to pop up showing you the different screens that you're going to be able to share. And we're still not seeing. Well, perhaps next time we can practice with this a minute.
We were doing so well.
You did well. Look at, sometimes we got to get through these technical difficulties. Got your message there, Jim Arroyo, about the Thrive Foods.
Anything?
And I don't know what, I don't know what's on your, it should be just coming. If you have is it on a PowerPoint?
Yeah, I just opened a new one and it's, to me, it looks just like it did for the other one.
Okay, and it's on a share screen. Yeah, you should be coming through. I'm not sure why you're not doing that. Well, we'll come back to it maybe on one of our next programs, and we'd love to hear that information. Okay. Is there anybody else who would like to bring up anything? Steve Hutchinson.
No. Doing pretty good.
Good.
I think we covered a lot tonight,
We did.
and it's like Janet says, there's a lot of things out there we can worry about, but we have no control over. So we need to look at what we actually have control over and, not worry about the big picture as far as what's going on, over in, Madagascar, if they're going to do something over there that doesn't have a direct effect on us. So look at your family, look at your neighborhood, look at your friends, and see what your sphere of control is. That way you can actually prepare without all the fear that's associated with a lot of the doomsday prepper stuff.
Exactly. I was going to make a point there on that. But yeah, you got to take care of you. You got to look in your own backyard. You got to look into your cupboards. You have to determine what you have and determine what you don't have and put a plan together. And one of the things I taught on earlier today, Yavapai County has a mental health team that comes together once a week or twice a month, whatever it is. You can go into Yavapai County, ycpt.org. Go in there, look when their mental health classes are being held by mental health professionals. And perhaps you're dealing with some kind of a stress or an issue in your life that maybe hearing how other people cope with it. Maybe it's a loss of a loved one. Maybe it's dealing with disease. Maybe it's dealing with just the pressures of constantly being bombarded by the news and having what you see more so as a negative input every day instead of seeing the positive of life. Because you know what, folks, despite all the BS that's going on, we have a lot of things to look for. We have a lot of things to look forward to, and we have a lot of things to do. What I taught on earlier today, this morning, was about time management and also clearing your head from stresses that you face on a day-to-day basis. And one of the exercises that I had the class do there was a thing called mind dumping, MINDDUMPING, mind dumping. And mind dumping is something that you should try because when we have cognitive overload and we're thinking about too many things and too many things are bombarding us at one time, what happens is we get stressed out we become overwhelmed, and our batteries dry down to where we just don't want to do a darn thing. So this mind dumping concept is just sit down with yourself for maybe 15, 20, 30 minutes, however long it takes. Take everything in your head that you think you have to do. Maybe it's with regard to prepping. Maybe it's something not even related to what we're talking about tonight. Write it down on a piece of paper. Get all that stuff out of your head. Give your frustration to your faith and put your clutter into the cloud. Because as you write this down, you can create a spreadsheet. You can just get it out of your head. And throughout the day, as things come up that you need to take care of, we know that 41% of to-do lists never get done. And if that's the case, you're keeping that garbage in your head for no good reason, because you're never going to do it anyway, right? This way you can prioritize your day. You can prioritize what's important to you. And if you get in the habit of doing a daily mind dump, you're going to sleep better. You're going to be more positive and get rid of a lot of the frustrations that you might be facing from all the garbage we've had to put up with the last 2 years. Fair?
Oh,
With
yeah.
that being said, I'm going to say, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us tonight. It's been a pleasure hosting you this evening. James Ducher, thanks for being here and hosting with me. And I'm looking forward to our next program, which is going to be in February, on February 5th. And February 19th will be the third week as well. And like I said, we'll do this at 6 p.m. February the Watch Your Me week, because I'm trying to post there at least on a regular basis. February the 19th, the third Saturdays of the month is what I'm trying to shoot for doing our live in-persons here in the East Valley, Scottsdale area. But you know what? Maybe you have got a group where you're at, pardon me. Let's get together in your neighborhood. James Ducher and I will drive over there and help you hold a meeting.
Yep.
No problem. If you can set a place up, Sandrick gave me somebody out in Apache Junction. I can speak. And we're going to be looking into that and see if we can hold some meetings out that way too. So if there's a group of people who want to get together, you know, whenever 2 or more of them are gathered in his name, we have a lot we're going to get accomplished. With that being said, have a great evening. Thank you for being here. Good night, everyone.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks.
Appreciate you.
All right.
Thank you, James and Keith.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
Thanks. Have a good one.